I stood there holding my phone, fingers trembling, heart pounding in my throat like a war drum. My mom's doctor had just told me she had hours to live. Her organs were failing fast. I had to get to the hospice across town now. I ran into the living room, keys in one hand, phone in the other, and called out to my wife, Chelsea. She sat on the couch in silk shorts, one leg draped over the other, phone angled high while she snapped selfies. Her brows furrowed, annoyed at the interruption. Chelsea, I said, my voice shaking, Mom's dying. We have to go. Please drive me. I'm too shaken to even think straight. She didn't even lower the phone. Babe, she said, chewing gum like she was in some 90s teen flick. I have a Zoom call in 10 minutes. Just take an Uber. The sentence slapped me. I blinked. Chelsea, I'm telling you my mother is dying. And I'm telling you I'm busy, she snapped, rolling her eyes. Jesus, Trent, it's always about your mom. It's not like you can do anything for her now. That broke me in ways I didn't know I could be broken. I didn't say a word. I just stared at her. Really stared. At the woman I married. At the fake lashes. At the careless smirk. At the glitter on her collarbone like she was about to hit a club, not sit in on a meeting. In that moment, I saw everything. The coldness. The detachment. The way she never really looked at me anymore. The way she always locked her phone when I entered the room. The random laughter from the bathroom when she was in there for a long bath. The sweet perfume on her coat that wasn't hers. The girls' nights that ended at 3 a.m. with smeared lipstick and no underwear. I didn't just feel heartbreak. I felt humiliation. I felt betrayal clawing up my throat like bile. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I turned around, walked to the home office, opened the drawer where I'd hidden the divorce papers, and laid them out on her glossy white desk. The desk she called her creative space. I left them there, right beside her MacBook, next to a pair of designer sunglasses that cost more than I made in a week. But I wasn't done. I reached into the wall safe. She didn't know I'd changed the code last week, and I took what I knew would shatter her. Not the money, I left that. Let the lawyers handle it. I took the notebook. Her precious notebook. The one she carried everywhere. Full of personal brand ideas, secret account passwords, her collaboration deals, all her digital empire crap. And one more thing. Photos. Photos I'd printed, tucked into the pages like bookmarks. Screenshots. Locations. Timestamps. A man's hand on her thigh in the back of a Tesla. Her reflection in a hotel mirror, kissing someone who wasn't me. She'd been sloppy. Careless. And I'd been quiet. I took that notebook. Walked out. And as I closed the door, she yelled from the couch, Trent, can you get me some iced coffee on the way back? I said nothing. Just smiled. Because when she'd finally get off that stupid call and march to her desk for her notes, she'd see the papers, the empty safe, the missing notebook. And I swear to God, her face turned the color of milk. That's when she called. 5 times. Left voice notes full of fake sweetness. Babe, was that a joke? Haha, you're scaring me. Let's talk. I didn't listen, because I was already sitting at my mother's side, holding her cold hand, whispering how much I loved her. And I thought Chelsea could have been here for me. She could have stood beside me when I needed her most. Instead, she chose eyeliner and lies. And something in me flipped. I wasn't the man begging for scraps of affection anymore. I was the man planning his revenge. I ignored every single call. My phone buzzed like it had a seizure. Text after text. First, hey, can we talk? Then, why is my notebook gone? Followed by, what did you do, Trent? And finally, you're overreacting. Stop being dramatic. I didn't reply. I sat with my mother, watched her chest rise and fall slower each time. I held her hand until it stopped moving, until the machine let out that flat, final sound that I'll never forget. And Chelsea wasn't there. She could have been. She should have been. But she chose vanity over family, lip gloss over loyalty. After the funeral, I went home, packed 2 suitcases, and left. I didn't tell her where. I booked a cheap motel near the outskirts, a place that smelled like mildew and cigarettes, but it gave me space to think. I needed that, because what I was about to do next had to be perfect. I still hadn't confronted her. Not directly. That would come. But I wanted her to stew, to feel uncertain, paranoid. She texted again. Where's my stuff, Trent? What did you do? I smiled at the screen. The mask was slipping now. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about herself. A few days passed. Then one night, I parked across from a tall glass building downtown. Chelsea's favorite hotel, the one with a rooftop bar, mood lighting, and the best place to network. At 10:37 p.m., she walked out. Not alone. He was tall, sharp-dressed, smug, hand resting on the small of her back like he owned it. She laughed at something he said, tossed her hair like a schoolgirl. Then, right there, they kissed. No shame, no hesitation. She even looked around afterward, but not for guilt. For privacy. I filmed it. They got into a car. I followed. Not too close. Just enough. It wasn't even hard. She wasn't hiding it anymore. They ended up in a condo building uptown. He had a parking pass. She knew the code to the elevator. This wasn't new. This had been happening for a while. And me? I sat in my car and realized I didn't even feel heartbroken anymore. I felt insulted. Played. She didn't just cheat. She disrespected me like I was nothing. Like I was stupid. Like I didn't notice the sudden perfume that reeked of desperation. Like I didn't hear her in the shower whispering into her phone. The next morning, I sent her a message. Just one. A photo of the two of them from last night, kissing in front of the hotel. Captioned, "Nice Zoom call." She called instantly. I didn't answer. Then the messages started pouring in. The tone was different now. She was defensive. Aggressive. "You don't know what you saw. That's just a friend. Why are you being so controlling?" Gaslighting 101. Classic Chelsea. Later that night, I went back to the house, not to argue, to gather evidence. I had a second key she didn't know about. I walked in like a ghost. She wasn't home. I went straight to her laptop. Opened it. The password? Our dog's name, of course. Too easy. Emails. Messages. Receipts. Multiple names. Not just one guy. There was Jaden, Kyle, and M, no full name, just an initial. I checked her calendar. Dinner with Kay at 8. Be shaved. I almost laughed. Chelsea, the one who told me she was tired of intimacy. That she was emotionally exhausted. That she just needed space. And here she was, penciling in time to be someone else's plaything. I took screenshots of everything. All of it. Sent it straight to my lawyer. Then I wiped the laptop clean and left it open on the desk. On the screen, I left a message in bold white text on a black background. I know everything. That was the night she finally snapped. At 2:12 a.m., she showed up at my motel. Banged on the door like a lunatic. "Trent, open this door right now." I opened it. She stood there in a trench coat, heels, hair a mess, mascara streaked. She tried to barge in, but I blocked her. "Give me my F******ing notebook," she hissed. "I gave it to someone else," I said calmly. "Someone who's about to read a lot of interesting things." Her lips twitched. "Are you trying to ruin me?" "No," I replied. "You did that all on your own." And I shut the door. She screamed on the other side. Actually screamed. Like an animal in heat and rage. Like a predator who suddenly realized the prey had teeth. She kept yelling, slamming the door, calling me names I won't repeat. But I didn't feel pain. I felt peace. That was the first night I slept through till morning in months. The next morning, I woke up to 46 missed calls and a dozen voicemails. All from her. Some sounded panicked. Others were pure venom. One of them even made me laugh. She accused me of being emotionally unstable, of acting crazy, and trying to destroy her career. That's what it always came down to for Chelsea. Not love. Not loyalty. Image. Followers. Influence. That fake little empire she built on filters and lies. By the time I checked out of the motel, I had a plan. I wasn't just going to leave her. I was going to strip away the facade. Let her rot in the mess she created. First stop, our shared bank account. I withdrew what was rightfully mine, clean, legal, documented. Then I visited my lawyer and handed him the files, the screenshots, even the timestamped video. He barely blinked. Said it wasn't his first Chelsea. Then came the fun part. I mailed copies of her little escapades to two people, her brand sponsor and her mother. One was her financial pipeline. The other was the only person she ever feared disappointing. Let's just say both messages were received with interest. Later that day, I walked back into the house. She was there, in the kitchen. She turned around slowly, a glass of wine in her hand, wearing that ridiculous silk robe she always wore after spa time. She stared at me like she hadn't been caught red-handed, like she wasn't the woman who tossed me aside while my mother was dying. "You're back," she said flatly. "For now," I replied, setting the garage key on the counter. "Just picking up the rest of my things." "Why are you doing this?" she snapped. "You're acting like I killed someone." I stared at her for a long second. "You might as well have." She laughed. actually laughed. Are you serious? You're being so overdramatic, Trent. It was just attention. It didn't mean anything. You slept with 3 different men. She sipped her wine. Oh, please, like you were Mr. Perfect. That's your excuse? That I didn't match your Instagram fairy tale? So you went out and got passed around like a sample tray. Her eyes narrowed. Watch your mouth. No. You watch yours. You lied to me for months. You ditched me when my mother was dying. You kissed some stranger 10 minutes after I begged you to help me get to her. And now you're mad I'm done with you? She shrugged, calm like she was discussing the weather. People fall out of love, Trent. It happens. Maybe you should have noticed sooner. That one hurt. Not because it was true, but because it was how she said it. Like I was some fool she had to tolerate. Like I was the one who missed the signs when, in reality, I chose to believe in her. Don't worry, she said with a smirk. You'll find someone more boring. Maybe someone who doesn't expect so much. I stepped closer. Here's the thing, Chelsea. I did notice. I noticed when you stopped saying goodnight. I noticed when you started wearing makeup to check the mail. I noticed when you flinched when I touched you. She blinked, suddenly less sure of herself. I kept going. I noticed when you started locking your phone. When you started hiding receipts. When your underwear stopped showing up in the laundry. I noticed. I just didn't want to believe that the woman I married had turned into this. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Then why didn't you leave? I was waiting. For what? For the moment you told me to take an Uber. She didn't speak. Her mouth opened slightly, like maybe she just realized the gravity of that moment. And that's when I pulled the final card. Oh, I added casually, and by the way, your precious sponsor? The one funding your wellness brand? They dropped you. Her wine glass hit the floor. Shattered. I didn't flinch. She stood there, trembling, mascara smudged under her eyes, lips trembling. You ruined everything. No, Chelsea. You ruined yourself. I just made sure the truth had a front row seat. I walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't have to. Because as I stepped into the sunlight, I felt something I hadn't in years. Freedom. The next few days were quiet. Peaceful, even. The kind of silence you don't realize you've been craving until you finally get it. I moved into a short-term apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy, just a place with 4 walls and no lies echoing off them. I bought a coffee machine, a cheap couch, a mattress still in plastic. It felt raw, but honest. Unlike everything Chelsea and I had built. She didn't stop texting. Her tone changed every day, sometimes rage, sometimes begging, sometimes full-on manipulation. One message read, "You're throwing away 10 years together for one mistake?" One mistake. That's how she described serial betrayal. One mistake. Like forgetting to take out the trash or missing a dentist appointment. And then, 2 days later, I got a message from Kyle. Yeah, that Kyle. One of her business partners. He sent me a voice note. Hey, Trent. Look, man. I didn't know she was married. She said you two were separated and that you didn't really care anymore. She made it sound like you were just roommates. I swear, man, if I had known. I didn't even respond. Because he was just one of them. And they all had the same story. Chelsea played the victim, painted me as a cold, detached husband who had already emotionally left the relationship. She made them feel like saviors, like they were giving her something I never could. That was her game. Spin the story until it suited her. Make herself the fragile phoenix rising from the ashes of our toxic marriage. And it worked. She fooled so many. But not anymore. A week later, I returned to the house one last time. Not to see her. Just to pick up a few final boxes I had left behind, photo albums, some old books my mom gave me, personal stuff that couldn't be replaced. I didn't expect her to be there. But she was. Sitting on the floor of the living room, no makeup, hoodie pulled over her head, surrounded by empty wine bottles and tissues. Her eyes were puffy. Her skin, pale. She looked like someone I didn't recognize. As I walked past her, she whispered, "Do you even miss me?" I stopped at the doorway. "No," I said. "I miss who you pretended to be." She flinched. Her shoulders curled in. Like the words stabbed deeper than she expected. "I was scared," she said quietly. "You were pulling away, and I didn't know how to fix it." "You fixed it by climbing into bed with strangers?" "I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't even care if you hurt me." She stood slowly, wobbling slightly. She wasn't drunk, just broken. But the thing about Chelsea is, she was never broken enough to apologize without trying to twist the knife again. "You weren't exciting anymore," she spat suddenly. "You stopped trying. You got comfortable. You got boring. I needed more." There it was. The truth, raw and ugly. I gave you loyalty, I replied, while you gave yourself away like a discount perfume sample. Her face twisted. You're disgusting. I stepped closer. Not threatening. Just enough for her to hear the calm in my voice. No, Chelsea. I'm free. I walked past her, grabbed my things, and left without another word. That night, I finally let myself cry. Not for her, but for the man I used to be. The one who bent over backward for a woman who wouldn't even drive him to his dying mother. And then I slept. Deep. Dreamless. Because the storm was over. And I was still standing. A few weeks passed, and life began to settle into something that almost felt normal. I was rebuilding. Day by day. Wound by wound. Every morning, I made my own coffee. Every night, I fell asleep without wondering who she was texting. It was strange how quickly peace replaced chaos when the toxin was gone. Chelsea tried a few more times. She emailed me, pretending to be professional. Let's finalize things amicably. We don't need to make this ugly. It was already ugly. She just didn't like how visible it had become. Then came the curveball. I got a call from her sister, Amanda. She and Chelsea hadn't spoken in years, mainly because Chelsea had borrowed 10 grand from her and never paid it back. Amanda was the only person in her family who had ever called her out. She said, I thought you should know, Chelsea's telling everyone you cheated first. I nearly laughed. She says you were emotionally abusive, Amanda continued. That you neglected her. That you had performance problems and took it out on her emotionally. There it was. The full smear campaign. Classic. She even showed a text from some girl named Brooke, Amanda added. That stopped me. Brooke. I hadn't spoken to her in years. She was an old coworker. We texted a few times back when Chelsea was pulling away, and I needed someone to talk to, someone who didn't make me feel invisible. Nothing ever happened. Just late-night chats about stress and life and nothing deeper. But Chelsea must have found those texts, cherry-picked the ones that sounded flirtatious, and twisted it into an affair of her own making. I thanked Amanda and hung up. And for the first time since the whole thing began, I realized just how far Chelsea was willing to go to protect her image. Not just betrayal. Not just lies. Defamation. She wasn't just done with me, she wanted to torch my name on the way out. That's when I decided to stop being passive. I released the footage. The video of her and Kyle kissing. The screen recordings of her messages to him about their nights at the condo. The clipped audio of her laughing about how Trent would believe anything as long as he got a kiss before bed. I didn't post it to social media. I wasn't that reckless. I just sent it. Quietly. Anonymously. To the same people she'd been whispering lies to. Her sponsors. Her fake influencer friends. Her mom. Her business collaborators. All of them got the truth. Uncut. No commentary. Just raw, undeniable facts. And just like that, the empire began to fall. Chelsea went radio silent. No more emails. No more messages. No late-night banging on my door. Instead, I heard through Amanda that her biggest sponsorship deal dropped her. That her podcast lost half its subscribers in 1 week. That the guy she was seeing, Jaden, or maybe it was M, ghosted her after getting a taste of the heat. She tried to go live on Instagram. Tried to cry her way into sympathy. Said she was being digitally abused. That her ex-husband was trying to punish her for finding herself. Comments roasted her. One person even wrote, Girl, you told a man to Uber to his dying mother. No one's buying your tears. I read that one twice. Then saved it. That sentence was going to live in my head rent-free for the rest of my life. And for the first time in months, I felt something warm. Not anger. Not vengeance. Closure. A month later, I got a letter from her lawyer. She wanted to reopen the conversation about the divorce terms. Said that some of the assets we'd once agreed on were unfairly divided, and that she was now in a different financial position due to defamation and harassment. That was the official language. The real meaning? Her deals dried up, her audience turned on her, and now she was scrambling. Too bad. We had a prenup. Ironclad. Reviewed by 2 separate lawyers. She laughed at it when we signed it years ago. Called it just a formality. Now it was her personal hell. I didn't respond. My lawyer did. 2 sentences. All terms remain as agreed upon. Further attempts to slander or harass my client will be handled legally. After that, it got quiet again. Until the night I bumped into Kyle at the gym. It was almost poetic. He was doing curls in front of the mirror, earbuds in, not noticing me until I passed behind him. He turned, did a double take. Trent, he said. I nodded. Didn't stop walking. But he followed. Hey, man. Look. I didn't know. I sighed and finally faced him. I know. You said that already. He looked guilty. Real guilt, not performative. She told me you were separated, that you were toxic. I swear, if I knew. You weren't the only one, I said. She had a few names on her calendar. He winced. Jesus. She told you she loved you, didn't she? His silence was loud. Yeah, I said. She told them all that. He looked down. I was just another idiot. No, I said. You were just another pawn. And I walked away. I wasn't angry. Not at him. Not anymore. He was just another casualty in her little performance. Another man who thought he was saving her when really she was draining him dry. A week after that, she texted me. No venom. No manipulation. Just, I miss you. Even after all of it. I miss you. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I didn't miss her. I missed a ghost. The version of her I thought was real. The woman who held my hand the night I proposed. The one who danced barefoot in the kitchen on Sunday mornings. The one who called my mom Mama T and meant it. But that woman didn't exist. And it took losing everything to realize I'd been in love with a mask. Sometimes I'd find myself staring at the wall at night, remembering random things. Like the way she used to hum off-key in the shower. Or how she'd steal fries off my plate and swear she didn't. And I'd feel a flicker of sadness, not for the marriage, but for the time I wasted believing in something that was already dead. Then I'd shake it off. Turn on some music. Cook dinner for one. Sit by the window and watch the city breathe. One night, Amanda called again. She's not doing great, she said. Not my problem, I replied. I know. Just figured you should hear it from someone who's not trying to play you. She's still telling people I abused her? No, not anymore. That stopped when she lost her last sponsor. People finally put the dots together. I nodded slowly. Good. She wanted me to tell you something, but honestly, I forgot what it was. Probably wasn't worth saying anyway. That made me chuckle. Probably. Anyway, you okay? Yeah, I said. First time in a long time. And it was true. Not happy, exactly. Not yet. But whole. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. I signed the last document in silence, slid it across the table to my lawyer, and walked out of that office without looking back. No dramatic courtroom scene. No screaming match. Just paper, ink, and closure. The end of a marriage that had rotted from the inside out long before it collapsed. I got what was fair. She got what was left. And with that, the final thread between us was cut. She still posted sometimes. I catch glimpses if someone sent me a link or tagged me in something. Her new healing journey persona. Talking to a ring light about self-love, about betrayal, about how not everyone is ready for your shine. Comments were turned off. Likes were hidden. Views were low. Sometimes, I'd wonder if she believed her own lies. If she truly thought she was the victim. Or if it all finally caught up to her, and she just didn't know how to live without the illusion. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I found myself again. Slowly. I reconnected with old friends, started going on hikes again, picked up photography, something I hadn't done since college. My apartment started to feel like home. Not because it was fancy, but because everything inside it was real. Honest. There was no perfume I didn't recognize. No lies hanging in the air. No second guessing. Just me, my thoughts, and the quiet understanding that sometimes peace comes after fire. I even met someone. Her name's Haley. We met at a bookstore, of all places. She asked me if I'd read the novel in her hand. I hadn't, but I bought it that day just so I'd have an excuse to talk to her again. She's gentle in a way that isn't weak. She listens not just to my words, but to the spaces between them. She knows I've been hurt, and she never asks for more than I can give. We're not rushing anything. I'm not building a castle on sand again, but I smile more now. I sleep better. I laugh like I mean it. And when I think about Chelsea, there's no hate, no pain, just a soft, distant echo of a man I used to be. I learned the hardest lesson of all. Loyalty means nothing to someone who worships attention. Love won't save a person who feeds on validation. And trust, once shattered, never returns the same. But most of all, I learned this. If a person shows you who they are when you're at your lowest, believe them. She told me everything the day she said, just take an Uber. I'm busy. And I told her everything when I left the divorce papers on her precious white desk, right beside the space where her soul used to be. The best revenge wasn't fire or fury. It was walking away, fully intact, while she burned alone. And if you're ever in my shoes, if you ever feel that pit in your stomach and ignore it, hoping things will fix themselves. Don't wait. You deserve more than someone who treats your grief like an inconvenience. You deserve truth, peace, something real. I found mine. Eventually. And I hope you do too. The call came at 2:14 a.m. I was already half awake, lying there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the empty side of the bed where Madison used to sleep. I picked up the phone with a sinking gut. Sir, your wife's been in an accident. You need to get to St. Mary's Hospital immediately. I didn't even put on socks. I drove like a lunatic, heart hammering against my ribs harder with each mile. Madison, beautiful, fiery, cruel Madison, could be dying, and all I could think was, why the hell was she out at 2 a.m.? The hospital parking lot blurred past as I sprinted through sliding doors. The smell of disinfectant and despair slapped me in the face. A nurse at the desk raised her hand. Family only, she said, like a damn robot. I'm her husband, I choked out, breathless. She checked the records, frowning. Then her eyes went cold. No, sir, she said flatly. She's listed as divorced. It felt like someone shoved a red-hot blade straight through my chest. What? I barked. I'm her husband, Matthew Carter. We've been married 7 years. The nurse just shrugged and pointed toward room 309. You'll have to take it up with whoever signed the paperwork. I stumbled down the hall like a drunk man, my mind screaming every curse word it knew. And that's when I saw it, through the little square window into her room. Jason Brooks, our goddamn neighbor, sitting beside her bed, holding her hand like he owned it, like he'd been holding it for years. He kissed her forehead tenderly, brushed a strand of her hair back behind her ear. She smiled in her sleep, murmuring something I couldn't hear. Then Jason looked up, and our eyes locked. He smirked. He leaned in closer to her ear and whispered something before turning his head toward me. I'll take care of her now, he mouthed. Then, louder, he said, I'm the man here. The rage that boiled inside me. I almost kicked down the door. I almost tore him apart with my bare hands. But something deeper, colder took over. Something that snapped inside me. I didn't enter that room. I didn't yell or scream or cry. I turned on my heel, walked back to the car, drove home like a ghost. When I got there, I emptied every single bank account we had, joint checking, savings, even the emergency stash she didn't know I knew about. I printed out every loan document she had co-signed with me. All the debts, all the responsibilities she thought I'd shoulder forever. I spread the papers out neatly across the kitchen table like a grim little buffet. I took off my wedding ring, placed it right in the middle of the stack, and added a sticky note. Enjoy being the man, Jason. The bills are yours now too. No big speeches. No last glances. I packed a small duffel bag, passport, cash, a few clothes, and walked straight into the night. Didn't even lock the door behind me. The last thing I saw as I drove away was the porch light flickering. Like the house itself was glad to see me go. The thing about betrayal is, it's not sudden. It's a slow bleed. 100 tiny red flags you convince yourself are just nothing. Looking back, it all started months ago. Little shifts. Madison used to kiss me goodbye every morning, sometimes even late for work because she couldn't keep her hands off me. Then, somewhere along the line, those kisses became quick, distracted pecks. Then they disappeared altogether. I'm just busy, she would shrug, tossing her hair over her shoulder, flashing that fake tired smile. The first time real suspicion hit me was a Sunday afternoon. I came home early from a fishing trip with my buddies. The house was too clean, too quiet. Madison wasn't in the kitchen, where she usually spent Sundays baking or messing around on her phone. I found her upstairs, standing in front of the bedroom mirror, adjusting her makeup. Not just casual makeup. I'm talking full glam, smoky eyes, fire red lipstick. She jumped when she saw me. Jesus, Matt, you scared me, she snapped, clutching at her chest like I'd committed a felony. I asked her where she was going. She hesitated. First mistake. Out. Just out with the girls, she said finally, grabbing her purse without meeting my eyes. Which girls? I asked. She mumbled something about the usual crew, but never named names. Her phone buzzed in her hand, and she practically threw it into her bag before I could glance at the screen. It was a stupid thing, but it stuck in my brain like a thorn. Madison never hit her phone before. She used to leave it lying around, open to any text, any call. Now it was always face down, always locked. Another night, about 2 weeks before the crash, I woke up at 1 a.m. and found the bed empty. I padded downstairs, thinking maybe she couldn't sleep. Instead, I found her in the garage, talking in low, urgent whispers on the phone. When she saw me, she ended the call so fast she didn't even say goodbye. "It was Julie," she said, referring to her best friend. "She's having boyfriend drama again." I nodded, pretending to believe her. But Julie was 6 months pregnant. What kind of boyfriend drama could she possibly be having at 1 a.m.? I started noticing the perfume too. Madison had a signature scent, sweet and light, something she used to spritz on just for me. Lately, she reeked of a deeper, muskier cologne every time she stumbled home late. She claimed it was from working late at the office, brushing past male coworkers. But it didn't smell like an office. It smelled like intimacy, like skin-on-skin contact that lingered. And there were other signs. Laughing too hard at Jason's jokes during our block parties. Letting him touch her lower back, accidentally, when she thought I wasn't looking. The way her eyes lit up when she texted someone, then dimmed the second she turned back to me. I kept telling myself it was paranoia, that I was being crazy, that we were just hitting a rough patch like everyone warned me marriage would have. But deep down, in the part of my gut reserved for survival instincts, I knew. I just didn't want to admit it. Didn't want to believe that the woman I built my life around could torch it all so easily for a thrill. Now, standing there outside that hospital room, watching Jason stroke her hair like he'd been doing it forever, it all made horrifying, blinding sense. The affair wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. A choice she made again and again. Every night she lied. Every morning she kissed me with someone else's touch still on her skin. And I had been nothing but the fool smiling at the gallows. 3 days after the accident, Madison came home. Well, not home exactly. Jason brought her back to her mother's place, like he was returning a borrowed toy. Meanwhile, the house we shared, the home I built for us, stood empty, silent, rotting just like everything else. I knew she'd have to come back eventually to collect her stuff. So I waited, patiently, calmly, like a hunter. The moment her car rolled up the driveway, Jason's truck, actually, I stepped out from behind the garage, arms folded. She limped toward the door, a fake cast on her wrist, oversized sunglasses covering half her face. She saw me and froze. "Matt," she said, voice syrupy and surprised, as if she'd bumped into an old coworker at the mall. "What are you doing here?" I laughed. I actually laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. "What am I doing here?" "I live here, Madison." She had the audacity to roll her eyes, like I was the one being dramatic. "Look," she said, shifting her weight awkwardly. "I didn't want you to find out this way. But honestly, we've been over for a long time, Matt. You just didn't notice." I felt my jaw tighten. "Over? Last month you were talking about starting a family." She shrugged. "Yeah, well, people change. I changed. You didn't." The words hit like shotgun blasts. Short, sharp, designed to cripple. Jason sauntered up behind her, leaning casually against the truck, watching, smirking, like he was proud of stealing something and daring me to say something about it. "You listed yourself as divorced at the hospital," I said quietly, holding her gaze. "Before you even filed papers. Before you even told me." Madison sighed heavily, like I was exhausting her. "Technicality," she said. "I didn't want any confusion with medical decisions. Jason knows me better than you do. He deserved to be there." My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. "You're a liar," I said, voice shaking. "A cheating, lying coward." She finally ripped off the sunglasses and glared at me, eyes flashing pure, unfiltered cruelty. "You think you're some kind of victim?" she hissed. "You bored me, Matt. You bored me to death. Same house, same job, same dumb jokes. You think that's enough to keep a woman like me around?" Jason chuckled behind her, low and smug. My heart broke again. Smaller pieces this time, each shard sharper than the last. "You could have left," I said, voice hollow. "You could have just said you wanted out." "But then who would have paid for my car?" she snapped. "Who would have covered my credit cards? Who would have paid for all the trips you were too boring to go on?" Her words stripped every ounce of dignity I had left. She hadn't loved me for a long time. Maybe never. I stepped closer, dropping my voice to a near whisper. "You'll regret this," I said. "Not because you lost me, but because you think Jason's any different." Madison laughed. A short, cruel bark. "You think I care? Jason's fun. He makes me feel alive. Something you haven't done in years." She shoved past me, striding into the house like she still owned it. Jason followed, winking at me like a villain in a cheap movie. I didn't chase them. I didn't scream or cry. I just stood there, staring at the door, feeling something inside me turn to ice. I realized, in that moment, the woman I loved was dead. Maybe she'd never really existed. Maybe Madison had always been this rotten underneath the pretty smile, and I'd just been too stupid or too hopeful to see it. And somehow, that was even worse than losing her. The night after the confrontation, I sat alone on the back porch with a bottle of bourbon and 1,000-pound weight on my chest. The silence around me wasn't peaceful, it was loud. Screaming. Mocking. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind sounded like Madison's laughter, like Jason's smirk. I stared up at the stars, wondering how the world could still spin when mine had been smashed into dust. At first, it was pure rage. Not the kind of anger that boils over in fists and broken plates. No, this was colder. Deeper. The kind of fury that simmers under your skin, eating at your bones. I pictured Jason's face, that cocky little grin, and I wanted to erase it from the earth. I wanted to rip everything apart. My house, my memories, my entire stupid life built around a woman who never really gave a damn. I gripped the neck of the bourbon bottle until my knuckles went white. My mind replayed everything she said, every insult, every word meant to belittle, to humiliate. You bored me. You didn't change. Jason makes me feel alive. As if love was supposed to be fireworks every second. As if loyalty meant nothing. As if 7 years of sacrifices and compromises were worth less than a few months of dirty motel meetings with a neighbor too pathetic to find his own woman. At some point, the anger cracked, gave way to something worse. Grief. The kind that crawls into your chest and makes a nest there. I sat there and let it hollow me out, tear by tear, until I wasn't even sure what I was crying for anymore. For the woman I lost? For the life I thought we had? For the future that would never happen? Or maybe for the man I used to be before Madison poisoned him with lies and half-truths and fake kisses. I thought about all the times I made excuses for her. How I blamed myself when she was distant. How I tried harder, bought flowers, planned trips, stayed late at work to afford things she wanted. How I apologized when she got angry, even when I didn't understand why. I realized then that Madison didn't just betray me, she erased me. Turned me into some background character in my own damn story. And I let her. That was the real gut punch. Not that she cheated. Not that she picked Jason. But that somewhere deep inside, I must have known for a long time and still clung to the fantasy of her. Still begged for scraps of love from someone who only saw me as a paycheck and a placeholder. I stayed outside until the bourbon was gone and the sky started bleeding orange at the horizon. I didn't move. I didn't sleep. I just sat there and let the night strip me down to nothing. When the sun finally rose, I felt something strange. Not hope. Not forgiveness. Just emptiness. Clean, blank emptiness. Like someone had wiped the blackboard of my soul. Maybe that's what true betrayal does. It doesn't just hurt you. It burns away every illusion you ever had about yourself, about love, about the future. And all that's left is the truth, naked and brutal. You can't fix what someone doesn't want to keep. Madison was never mine to save. She was never falling. She was already gone. And now, finally, so was I. At sunrise, I made my decision. There would be no dramatic scenes. No begging. No late-night drunk texts asking why. No second chances wrapped up in cheap apologies. The life I built with Madison was over. And it was time to bury it properly. First, I called the bank. Froze every joint account she could still touch. I wasn't about to let her fund her shiny new life with Jason off the back of my broken heart. Then, I called my lawyer, Mark Donovan. Good guy, old college buddy. He picked up on the second ring. Mark, I said, voice hoarse from the night silence. I need you to file for divorce. Today. There was a pause. Then a simple, got it. No pity. No lectures. Just action. Exactly what I needed. Next, I pulled out the folder Madison never thought I'd find, the one hidden in her closet, stuffed under piles of useless shopping bags. Bank statements. Credit card bills. Hotel receipts. Proof. Proof that she hadn't just tripped into Jason's bed one drunken night. This was a full-blown affair. Organized. Consistent. Ruthless. They stayed at the same cheap motel every Tuesday night for almost 6 months. Madison even had a rewards card. I laughed out loud reading it. A real, broken kind of laugh. She cheated on me with the same dedication she used to plan our wedding. How poetic. By noon, the moving truck arrived. I wasn't staying in that tomb of broken promises a second longer. I packed what mattered, my clothes, my tools, my grandfather's watch, my dignity, and left the rest. She could keep the house. Let it rot with her lies. Before I left, I did one last thing. One last, perfect act of closure. I took every framed photo of us, vacations, anniversaries, birthdays, and smashed them one by one against the kitchen counter. Glass exploded like tiny fireworks. Pieces of fake smiles rained down all over the tile floor. Then I gathered all the shards and dumped them in a cardboard box. Taped it shut. On the front, I wrote in thick black marker, "Memories you can't sell, bitch." I left the box right in the center of the living room, like a monument to the death of everything she destroyed. As I walked out the door, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The chapter was closed. The book was burned. I was free. It wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the end of Matthew Carter, the man who sacrificed himself on the altar of a woman who never deserved him. And it was the beginning of someone new. Someone who didn't take betrayal lying down. Someone who wasn't going to let a cheater, a coward, and her pathetic little boyfriend define his life story. I didn't know where the road would take me yet. Didn't have a plan. Didn't have a grand dream. All I had was a tank full of gas, an empty bank account under my name only, and a heavy, pulsing sense of something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Possibility. Maybe real life started after everything safe and familiar got ripped away. Maybe freedom wasn't clean or pretty. Maybe it came with bruises and broken bones and a heart stitched together with rage. But it was freedom all the same. And I wasn't about to waste it mourning someone who didn't even deserve my hate. I drove off into the afternoon sun, windows down, wind slapping my face, every mile between me and Madison feeling like a chain falling away. For the first time in years, I could finally breathe. And God, did the air taste good. Weeks passed. Not that I kept track on a calendar. Time moved differently after Madison. Some days bled together in a haze of cheap motel beds, greasy diner food, and long empty roads stretching out into nowhere. Other days hit like a hammer, a memory, a smell, a half-remembered laugh punching straight into my ribs. But something strange started happening the further I got from that house, from that life. The anger faded. The grief loosened its grip. And underneath all the wreckage, something solid started to show. Something real. Something mine. When you've been torn apart by betrayal, you learn things you never wanted to know. Like how trust isn't something you should throw at someone just because they smile pretty and promise forever. Like how loving someone more than you love yourself isn't noble, it's suicide. And maybe most importantly, if someone shows you they don't respect you once, believe them. I spent too long excusing Madison's little cruelties, laughing off her sarcasm when it cut too deep, nodding along when she belittled me in front of friends, thinking it was just her sense of humor, swallowing every gut feeling and red flag because I didn't want to be that guy paranoid, insecure, jealous. But guess what? Good feelings are there for a reason. They're the last alarm bells before the building collapses. If I could go back and tell that version of myself, the one who still believed in her, still thought love was enough to fix anything, I'd grab him by the shoulders and shake the stupid hope out of him. I'd tell him, love isn't supposed to feel like constant anxiety. It isn't supposed to feel like competition. It isn't supposed to leave you wondering if you're enough every damn day. Real love isn't about fireworks. It's about peace. And if you don't have that, if you spend more nights crying or pacing or drinking yourself numb than laughing together, you're not in love. You're in chains. Madison didn't break me. She revealed me. She peeled away the man who lived for someone else's approval. She killed the boy who thought being loyal meant accepting disrespect. She burned down the house made of empty promises and forced me to build something stronger in the ashes. And for that, hell, maybe someday I'll even thank her. Not today, but someday. Because now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see a broken man. I see a survivor. Scarred? Hell yes. But scars are just proof you made it through. If you're reading this, if you're standing in the smoking ruins of a marriage or a relationship you thought would last forever, hear me when I say, you're not weak for hurting. You're not foolish for believing. And you're sure as hell not broken forever. You're just at the start of something real. Something they don't get to touch or taint anymore. Betrayal doesn't get the final word. You do. And your best revenge isn't rage or bitterness or endless what-ifs. It's living. Louder. Stronger. Wiser. And never, never letting someone else's lies define your worth again. Funny thing about walking away from a disaster. You don't have to look back to watch it burn. Sometimes the universe has a better sense of justice than you ever could. A month after I disappeared from Madison's life, the story started trickling back. Small town. Big mouths. First came the whispers that Jason lost his job. Turns out sleeping with a married neighbor doesn't sit well with your boss when you work in insurance sales. Especially when said neighbor's husband was one of the company's biggest clients. Oops. Without that cushy paycheck, Jason had to move in with Madison full-time. No more cozy nights sneaking around. No more motel adventures funded by someone else's wallet. Just two selfish, miserable people crammed together under one leaky roof. I heard from a mutual friend, the kind who likes gossip more than breathing, that Madison wasn't exactly thrilled with her upgrade. Apparently, Jason wasn't so charming when he wasn't a secret anymore. Apparently, he drank too much. Apparently, he had a nasty temper once the mask slipped. One night, Madison called the cops on him after a screaming match turned into broken dishes and bruised egos. No arrests. No charges. Just another public mess for everyone to see. The same woman who once threw me away for being boring was now stuck with a jobless drunk who spent his nights watching sports and ignoring her desperate attempts to feel special. The irony tasted sweeter than any revenge I could have plotted. But it didn't end there. Creditors started calling. Because guess what? Madison wasn't great with money when someone else wasn't footing the bills. And that fancy lifestyle she loved so much, the salon trips, the designer bags, the weekend getaways, didn't pay for itself. She tried selling the house. But without my income to qualify for a decent loan, she was underwater. Every month, deeper in debt. Every month, a little more desperate. A few months later, word got around that Madison moved back in with her mother. Jason? Gone. Vanished as soon as the free ride dried up. Maybe he found another boring married woman to leech off. Maybe he realized Madison wasn't a prize without a purse attached. Either way, they got exactly what they deserved. Each other's disappointment. Each other's lies. Each other's pathetic regrets. And me? I wasn't around to gloat. I wasn't there to see the tears or the fights or the empty bottles piling up on their cheap rented table. I was living my life. Better. Stronger. Freer. They say the best revenge is living well. I used to think that was just something losers said to feel better about losing. Now I know it's the only real truth. Because what Madison and Jason didn't understand, what they'll never understand, is that betrayal doesn't make you powerful. It makes you small. It makes you pathetic. It makes you two broken people clinging to each other like lifeboats when the ship has already sunk. I didn't need to scream or smash windows or burn bridges. I just needed to walk away and let karma set the fire. And from everything I've heard, it's still burning. Good. Some trash is better left in ashes. 6 months later, I stood on a cliff in Big Sur, California, staring out at the Pacific Ocean. The air was sharp and cold. The waves roared against the rocks below, wild and untamed, exactly how I felt inside. It wasn't some magic moment where everything suddenly made sense. Life isn't a movie. You don't get a perfect sunrise and a neat little bow tying all the pain together. But standing there, feeling the wind tear through me, I realized something important. I was alive. Not just breathing. Not just surviving day after day, faking smiles and swallowing bitterness. Actually alive. I hadn't touched alcohol in 3 months. I'd picked up hiking, something Madison always mocked as too sweaty and boring. I even started sketching again, badly, filling a battered notebook with cliffs, waves, strangers I met along the way. It didn't matter if it was good. It mattered that it was mine. The freedom tasted better than any revenge fantasy ever could. One morning, I grabbed a black coffee at a roadside diner, sat by the window, watched the locals shuffle in and out, old fishermen, weathered waitresses, young kids trying to figure out their place in the world. That's when I met her. Emma. She wasn't some manic dream girl or some desperate rebound. She was real. Solid. A woman who laughed without bitterness. Who talked about books and road trips and making mistakes without hating herself for them. She wasn't better than Madison. She was completely different. Emma didn't make me feel like I had to audition for her love. Didn't make me feel like I was a background character in my own damn story. She sat across from me, sipped her coffee, and treated me like I mattered, without trying to control or fix or diminish me. It scared the hell out of me. And it thrilled me too. I'm not saying we rode off into the sunset that day. This isn't that kind of story. Real healing isn't fast. It's messy. It's terrifying. It's waking up at 3 a.m. sometimes, heart pounding, wondering if you're ever really safe again. But it's also laughing at a stupid joke and realizing you didn't fake it. It's sitting in silence with someone and not feeling the need to fill it with apologies. It's trusting yourself enough to know you'll survive even if it doesn't work out. Because you've already survived worse. Way worse. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Emma's part of it. Maybe not. But what I do know, deep in my bones, written in every scar Madison carved into me, is this. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not desperate to prove my worth to someone who can't see it. I'm not chasing love like a starving man chasing scraps. I'm whole. Broken once, sure. But not forever. If you've been through it, the betrayal, the lies, the slow death of the person you thought loved you, listen close. It's not the end. It's the beginning. You're not ruined. You're refined. Stronger. Sharper. Wiser. And someday, when you least expect it, you'll stand somewhere, on a cliff, or a street corner, or in a diner with terrible coffee, and you'll realize. You made it. You didn't just survive. You rebuilt. And nobody, not the liar, not the coward, not the traitor, can ever take that from you. Not now. Not ever. The moment I saw it, that text, my world turned upside down. I had no idea it would be the thing that shatters everything. It was a typical evening. The party was buzzing, music in the background, laughter filling the air. My wife, Emily, was acting strange, but I didn't think much of it. After all, she's my wife. Trusting her was the easiest thing in the world. Or at least, it used to be. But there I was, talking to some old friends when I saw them. Emily laughing way too hard at something Mark said. He was leaning in closer than anyone should, too close. I didn't even need to be told. I knew. My stomach dropped. The room spun. I could see it in her eyes, her body language. It wasn't just a friendly conversation. Something was going on. Something she had kept from me for who knows how long. I couldn't take it anymore. I excused myself from the conversation and walked straight toward Emily. But before I could reach her, she was gone, slipping away through the crowd like she didn't even notice me. Something snapped inside of me. I needed answers. Where did she go? I asked her friend, Julia, who was standing nearby. I thought she'd tell me Emily was just taking a quick break. But the look on Julia's face said everything I needed to know. She went with Mark, Julia said casually, like it was no big deal. They've been talking all night. Why? What's wrong? That's when everything hit me. Mark? That guy? The one who was always just a friend? I felt a rush of anger surge through me, and before I could even process it, I was walking straight out the door. I wasn't about to sit there wondering anymore. I needed to find out what was really going on, even if it meant facing the worst. I found them in the parking lot, standing next to his car. Emily's back was turned to me, her body pressed so close to Mark that it was impossible to ignore. I couldn't believe it. I had never felt more betrayed in my life. Emily, I shouted, my voice sharp, cutting through the air. She jumped, but not as if she was surprised. No, it was more like she had been expecting this moment. She turned slowly, a smirk on her face that I couldn't quite place. She didn't even look guilty. Instead, her eyes had this strange, almost detached look, as if she was daring me to do something. And I knew right then that the woman I thought I knew was gone. Tom, what are you doing here? She asked, her tone almost bored, as if I wasn't catching her in the act of destroying everything we built. I should be asking you that, I said, the anger in my voice barely contained. What the hell is going on, Emily? She didn't flinch. She didn't look ashamed. In fact, she laughed. What, Tom? You think I'm some kind of angel? You've been so boring lately. Mark makes me feel alive. Isn't that what's important? Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Boring? Is that what she really thought of me? I had given her everything, my trust, my time, my love. And this is how she repaid me? By cheating with the one person I thought was a friend? I felt a burning rage in my chest, but I also felt something else, something more powerful than the anger. Hurt. It was the kind of hurt that made me question everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and trust. Do you think this makes you happy? I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. Do you think Mark's going to be there when it all falls apart? Because it will. It always does. Emily didn't say anything for a moment. She just looked at me like I was nothing, as if she had already moved on. And maybe she had. You don't get it, do you? She said coldly, her voice almost taunting. I'm done with this. We're done. You're boring, Tom. I need someone who can keep up with me. Her words cut deeper than any action she could have taken. She didn't just betray me physically, she betrayed me emotionally, mentally. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to plead. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I turned around, walking away without another word, but her laughter followed me like a shadow. She thought she won. She thought I'd just walk away and let her have it all. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. That night, I wasn't just going to let her walk away. I was going to show her what happens when you mess with the wrong person. The night wasn't over, not by a long shot. The moment I stepped into the quiet, dimly lit room, my mind was racing. I couldn't let the shock consume me, not yet. The betrayal was raw, but there was something else bubbling inside me now. It was more than anger. It was a cold determination. I had been played for a fool for too long, and now it was time to take control of this twisted situation. I didn't go straight home. I couldn't. I needed a moment to breathe, to process. The car felt like a cage, my fist clenched against the steering wheel. What was I even supposed to say? What was there to say? Emily had made it clear she was done with me, with us. And Mark? He had no right to be in my life, in my marriage. They were both dead to me, but I couldn't let it go. I couldn't just leave it like that. I drove aimlessly for a while, my mind still on that moment outside the parking lot, seeing them together, so comfortable with each other. The betrayal stung even more now that I was alone with my thoughts. How long had it been going on? How long had she been lying to me, stringing me along while she made a fool out of me? Finally, after what felt like hours, I ended up at home. The house felt empty, cold, like a shell of what it used to be. Emily's things were scattered around, little reminders of a life that no longer existed. I walked through the front door, my breath catching when I saw the jacket she had left on the couch. It was hers, the one I had bought her last Christmas. It should have meant something, but now it was just another symbol of the lies. I sat down at the kitchen table, waiting. I didn't know what I was waiting for, but I knew I wasn't going to let her get away with this. She had to face what she had done. She had to feel the consequences, just like I had to. Then the door opened. It wasn't a dramatic entrance, no sudden rush or confrontation. Emily walked in like she owned the place, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She didn't even look surprised to see me sitting there, waiting. "Tom, what are you doing here?" she asked, the same detached, almost mocking tone she had used earlier. She didn't look guilty. She didn't look anything like the woman I had married. She looked like a stranger. I stood up slowly, keeping my eyes locked on her. "I think we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the fury boiling inside me. "About what happened tonight. About Mark." She rolled her eyes, a sigh escaping her lips. "Oh, this again? You're acting like I've done something so awful. Mark and I were just having fun. I needed to feel alive, Tom. You're too boring." Boring. Those words. The ones she used to justify everything. I couldn't believe how easily she dismissed it all, like it didn't even matter. "So this is what it comes down to? You didn't think I'd notice? You didn't think I'd find out?" I asked, trying to control my voice, trying not to let my rage spill over. She shrugged, as if the entire affair was just something trivial, a mistake in her eyes. "I told you before, Tom. We weren't working. And you? You've become so predictable. So boring. Mark is different. He makes me feel wanted." The words stung more than I could have ever imagined. Not just the fact that she cheated, but the complete lack of remorse. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't begging me to understand. She wasn't even acting like she cared. She just didn't care. "You think that's going to make it better?" I shot back, my voice rising now. "You think he is going to make you happy? Because I promise you, Emily, it's going to blow up in your face. It always does. Always." She stepped closer to me, the smugness never leaving her face. "You really think I care about your opinion anymore?" She spat, her tone cold, cruel. "I don't need you, Tom. I never needed you. This was just an inconvenience." Her words cut deeper than any slap could. It wasn't the affair that hurt the most. It was how easily she dismissed everything we had built together. All the years, the memories, the promises we made, just gone. I took a deep breath, trying to control the storm inside me. I had a choice. I could let this continue, keep fighting for a marriage that she had already destroyed. Or I could walk away, leave her to face the consequences of her actions. The decision was clear. "You think this is over, don't you?" I said, my voice calmer now. "But it's not. You're going to regret this. I'll make sure of it." She looked at me, not with fear or regret, but with defiance. "You're not going to do anything, Tom. You never do." With that, I walked out, slamming the door behind me. There was no turning back now. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't escape the images in my head of her, of them, together, laughing, while I was left in the dark. The anger that had once consumed me began to fade, replaced by something worse, emptiness. It was like I had been living in a lie, in a version of my life that didn't exist anymore. And now, everything had come crashing down. I spent the first few nights in the guest room, not sure what to do. Emily didn't seem to care. She went on with her life as if nothing had happened, while I was falling apart, piece by piece. Every time I saw her, the hurt was there simmering beneath the surface. But she acted like nothing was wrong. She would walk through the house, her phone glued to her hand, laughing at jokes I couldn't hear, pretending like I wasn't even there. She had completely shut me out, as if I had been nothing but a fleeting moment in her life. But I wasn't going to let it go. Not after everything. Not after she had looked me in the eye and lied, told me I was boring, like I was the one who had ruined everything. I knew I needed to confront her again, but this time, it wasn't just about the affair, it was about taking back control. I wasn't going to let her dictate the terms of this. I wasn't going to be the one sitting in the background, crying over someone who didn't give a damn about me. The following weekend, I saw it. A text message, one that would change everything. Emily had left her phone on the counter while she was in the shower. I wasn't proud of what I was about to do, but I needed answers, and she had made it clear she wasn't going to give them to me willingly. The message was from Mark. I didn't even have to read the entire conversation to know what was happening. The words jumped off the screen. We can't keep doing this. What if Tom finds out? I felt a cold chill run through me. It wasn't just the fact that she was still talking to him. It was the fact that she was planning her next move. She was already thinking about how to keep me in the dark, how to keep lying to me, how to continue this charade. And what's worse, she didn't care. She didn't care about me, about our life, about any of it. All she cared about was herself and what she could get out of this. That's when I knew. I wasn't just dealing with a woman who made a mistake. I was dealing with someone who had no respect for me, for what we had built. Emily was toxic. She wasn't the woman I had married. She was a stranger, someone I didn't even recognize anymore. I didn't know how much longer I could take it. I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want to sit there and beg for her to come back, to apologize. I wasn't that person anymore. I was done with all the lies. And I wasn't going to let her walk all over me, not anymore. It was time for action. I couldn't let her get away with this. If she thought she could just waltz in and out of my life without consequences, she was wrong. I was going to make her face the truth. She was going to see just how deep she had cut me, how much damage she had done. That night, when she came home, I was ready. I wasn't going to play her game anymore. I wasn't going to stand there, listening to her excuses, pretending like everything could go back to normal. I had already made up my mind. When she walked in, I didn't greet her. I didn't say a word. I simply handed her the phone. Her face immediately drained of color when she saw the text messages. The smirk on her face, the one that had been there the night she confronted me, was gone. For the first time in days, I saw something resembling fear in her eyes. She tried to say something, tried to come up with an explanation, but I wasn't listening. I had heard enough. I had been a fool long enough. Don't even try to lie to me, I said, my voice low, calm. I'm done with the lies, Emily. You've made your choice. Now, so have I. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For once, she didn't have an answer. She was just standing there, looking at me, realizing that everything she had built, every lie she had told, had finally caught up with her. I wasn't going to fight for her anymore. I wasn't going to beg her to stay. The woman I had once loved was gone, and in her place was someone I didn't even recognize. I'm leaving, I said, the words cutting through the silence. I'm done. I won't be part of this toxic mess anymore. I don't need to fight for your love. I'm done fighting for a relationship that's already dead. I didn't wait for her to respond. I turned and walked out, leaving her standing there, probably wondering what the hell just happened. I wasn't her punching bag anymore. I wasn't going to be the one left in the dark, waiting for her to decide when and if she would show up. This was it. No more lies. No more games. I was done. I don't know what I expected when I walked out that door, but I didn't expect to feel this empty. I thought that finally standing up for myself would make everything feel better, but instead, it felt like a huge weight had just landed on me, and I didn't know how to carry it. Emily didn't even try to stop me. She didn't beg or cry, didn't do anything that might have shown she still cared. That should have told me everything I needed to know. The days after I left were a whirlwind of emotions. There was anger, of course, so much anger. But there was also something else, something that hit me harder. It was that sense of loss. Losing someone you thought you could trust, someone you build a life with, it changes you. It makes you question everything you believed in. I felt like I didn't even know who I was anymore. What did I want? What was I supposed to do now? I couldn't just keep running from the truth, though. I had to face it head on. And the truth was, I had been letting Emily walk all over me for far too long. She had made me believe I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't exciting enough for her. She had made me feel like I was the problem when all along, it was her. She had destroyed everything. For the first time in years, I took a hard look at myself. I wasn't perfect, but I was trying. I had given her my all, and she had taken it all for granted. But I wasn't going to let her tear me down anymore. I wasn't going to let her define who I was. It was time to move on. I had to rebuild my life from the ground up, and it started now. I rented an apartment a few days later. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It felt like the first real step toward freedom. I unpacked my things, tried to make it feel like home, but it was hard. The emptiness of the space mirrored the emptiness I felt inside. I didn't have any answers to the questions in my mind. How could I just walk away from everything? How could I walk away from her? But deep down, I knew I had no choice. Emily had taken everything I had given her and thrown it away. And I wasn't going to keep holding on to something that wasn't worth saving. The next few weeks were filled with long nights and endless reflection. I thought about everything, about what went wrong, about the things I could have done differently. But in the end, it didn't matter. What mattered now was what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let this define me. I wasn't going to let this betrayal be the story of my life. Emily tried to contact me several times. She left messages, sent texts, and even showed up at my apartment unannounced. But I ignored it all. Every time I saw her name on my phone, I just deleted it. I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses, her apologies. I didn't care about her version of the story anymore. I didn't need her to explain why she cheated. I had seen everything I needed to see. Her actions spoke louder than any words could. One afternoon, she showed up at my door. She looked different, like she had been crying. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her, but then I remembered everything. I remembered the way she had disrespected me, the way she had made me feel like I wasn't enough. "Tom, please," she said, her voice shaky. "I messed up. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We can start over." I looked at her, at the woman who had once been my whole world, and I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. But not because I wanted to fix things, not because I wanted to go back to what we had. No, I felt sorry for her because she still didn't understand. She didn't understand that she had already made her choice. And now, I was making mine. "I'm not the person you think I am," I said quietly, but with conviction. "You don't get to just walk back into my life because you made a mistake. You don't get to destroy everything and then expect me to just take you back. It doesn't work like that." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't flinch. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. "I've already moved on, Emily. You should too. There's nothing left for us here." She stood there for a moment, her face a mix of shock and disbelief. And then, she turned and left without another word. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, staring at the door, but when I finally closed it, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. It wasn't the peace I had expected when I made the decision to leave. It was more like a quiet resolve. I had done what I needed to do. I had taken control of my life again. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. I was free. Free from the lies, free from the betrayal, free from the woman who had never truly respected me. It was over. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what came next, I would be okay. The days following my decision to leave were like a strange kind of limbo. It was hard to find stability when everything in your life had just been upended. I had always thought I was strong enough to deal with whatever life threw my way. But now, with everything that had happened, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. I wasn't sure if I could ever trust myself again, let alone anyone else. I found myself drowning in my own thoughts. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., the silence of the apartment suffocating me. My mind would race through the memories of the last few years. How did it all go wrong? How had I been so blind? She wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with, and yet I had kept holding on to her like a fool, convinced that I could fix things. I hadn't seen Emily for a few weeks. I hadn't heard from her either, which was strange. Part of me expected her to come crawling back, trying to make amends, but that didn't happen. And I was starting to wonder if it was because she had already found someone else, or maybe because she truly didn't care about me at all. It didn't matter either way. It wasn't my problem anymore. Despite the resolve I had shown when I walked out, the pain lingered. There were moments when I would drive past places we used to go to, and it would hit me like a ton of bricks. All those memories, all that history between us, it felt like it was vanishing, slipping through my fingers like sand. How could everything we had built just disappear in an instant? I spent most of my time at work, burying myself in my responsibilities, trying to keep my mind occupied. But even that felt empty. It wasn't that I didn't have a passion for my job. It was just that, without Emily by my side, nothing felt the same. I found myself distracted at meetings, making careless mistakes, and not caring about the consequences. Then, one evening, I decided to go out. I hadn't seen friends in weeks. I hadn't spoken to anyone outside of work. The isolation was starting to weigh on me, and I needed to remind myself that I still had a life beyond the wreckage of my marriage. I called up Mike, someone I used to hang out with before all the chaos. It was time to face the world again, to stop letting Emily's betrayal define me. I met Mike at a local bar, a quiet little place I had visited countless times before. It was strange to sit there alone, without Emily, without the woman who had been my world for so long. But as the night wore on, I started to loosen up. Mike made jokes, and I laughed. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a flicker of something close to happiness. It wasn't much, but it was something. We talked about everything and nothing: sports, work, old memories, and I even caught myself talking about the relationship, though not in the way I had before. I didn't get into the details of the betrayal, but Mike could tell something was off. He was a good friend, always had been. He asked me how I was really doing. Honestly, man, I said, setting my drink down, I'm not sure. Some days it feels like everything's just crashing down. Other days, it's like I'm just numb to it all. It's weird. I thought I would feel better by now, but I don't. I just feel lost. Mike looked at me, his expression serious. It's normal to feel like that. You've been through a lot. Just don't do what a lot of guys do, man. Don't bottle it up. You've got to work through it. You can't just ignore it. I nodded, appreciating his words. It wasn't easy to hear, but it was the truth. I couldn't keep running from it. I had to face the fact that the marriage I had fought so hard to preserve was over. I had to accept that the woman I had loved had chosen someone else. I couldn't change it. I couldn't go back in time and undo it. But what I could do was move forward. I could rebuild. I could take the shattered pieces of my life and start putting them back together. I wasn't sure where to begin, but I knew I couldn't stay in the past. I had to let go of Emily, of the pain, and of the person I used to be. That night, as I left the bar, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was hope. Maybe not for a future with Emily, but for a future of my own. I didn't know what that future looked like yet, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of it. As I drove back to my apartment, the weight of the last few months seemed a little lighter. I wasn't out of the woods yet, but I could see a path forward. I was learning to let go of the past, to stop allowing it to control me. It wasn't easy. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And for the first time since Emily walked out on me, I believed that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. The weeks dragged on, and while I had made progress, there was still something lingering. The weight of my past with Emily, the memories of our marriage, those things hadn't completely faded. I'd moved into a new routine, new habits, trying to redefine myself, but there were days when I'd wake up and feel the emptiness all over again. It wasn't just about missing her, it was about missing who I thought I was with her. I had spent so much of my identity wrapped up in our relationship, and now that it was gone, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. It was late one night when I had another revelation, one that shifted everything. I had been scrolling through old photos on my phone, looking back at pictures of the two of us on vacations, at birthdays, at family gatherings. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the crushing pain. Instead, I felt nothing. The faces that once meant everything to me, her face, the face I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, had started to fade into the background. It was an odd sensation, like a wave of clarity had washed over me. All those emotions, all that heartbreak, were finally starting to make sense. I had spent so much of my time grieving the person I thought she was, not the woman she had actually become. I had romanticized the memories, as if they held all the answers to the pain I was going through. But they didn't. In that moment, I realized that I wasn't just grieving the loss of her, I was grieving the loss of the man I had been. I had let my identity become too tied to her, to the relationship, and now that it was gone, I was left with a shell of who I once was. But I wasn't that man anymore. The man I was becoming was stronger, more resilient. The man I was becoming wasn't going to be defined by someone else's choices or their actions. I had the power to choose who I wanted to be. I wasn't broken. I wasn't the victim. I was a person, and I had a life to rebuild. I put my phone down, standing up from the couch and walking over to the window. It was raining outside, but there was something peaceful about the sound of the rain hitting the glass. I stood there for a while, letting the moment sink in. I had been so caught up in trying to fix everything that I had forgotten to look at the bigger picture. I wasn't broken. I was just learning to be myself again. I took a deep breath, a smile tugging at the corner of my lips. The truth was, I was never going to get over everything with Emily overnight. But I was starting to see that I didn't need to. I didn't need her to validate me. I didn't need her to tell me I was worthy of love. I was worthy of it all on my own. The next morning, I woke up feeling different, lighter, like a burden had been lifted off my shoulders. I had spent so much time replaying everything, trying to fix something that had already been broken beyond repair. Now, I was ready to move on, truly move on, and embrace whatever the future had in store for me. I started making changes. I signed up for a gym. I started getting back into things I loved, things I had put off for too long. I began spending more time with my friends, with people who cared about me, not the people who had taken advantage of me. For the first time in a long time, I was putting myself first. I wasn't chasing anyone's approval anymore. I was doing things because I wanted to. A few weeks later, I met someone. Her name was Sophie. We hit it off instantly. She wasn't anything like Emily. She wasn't trying to fix me or heal my wounds. She was just herself, and that was enough. I didn't feel the need to rush into anything with her. It was different this time. I wasn't looking for someone to fill the hole in my heart. I was learning how to fill it myself. Sophie and I started spending more time together, but it wasn't out of desperation or loneliness. It was because I actually enjoyed her company. It was because I could finally see the possibility of a future with someone who didn't define me by my past. But even with Sophie, I had learned something important. I didn't need anyone to complete me. I didn't need a woman to make me feel whole. What I needed was to love myself, to rediscover who I was outside of the confines of a relationship. It wasn't easy. It wasn't perfect. But it was progress. And that was all I needed to know. It's funny how life works. One moment, you're down in the depths, drowning in self-doubt and heartbreak. The next, you're standing tall, staring at a future you never thought possible. It wasn't an overnight transformation, though. It was a slow, painful crawl back to life, one step at a time. And as I stood there, looking at the man I was becoming, I realized just how much I had grown. Sophie had been a reminder of what it felt like to be seen, to be valued for who I was, not for who I had been in the shadow of Emily's betrayal. She wasn't trying to fix me or make me forget my past. She simply accepted me, flaws, scars, and all. And for the first time since my marriage crumbled, I felt like I wasn't constantly running from something, but walking towards something better. But even as I started to feel myself heal, there were moments that caught me off guard. Moments when Emily would pop up in my life again. A text, a phone call, or even just a random encounter at the grocery store. Every time it happened, I found myself frozen in place, unsure of how to react. It was like a reflex, a knee-jerk reaction to the past that I had worked so hard to leave behind. It wasn't that I still loved her. No, that ship had sailed. It was more the fact that the scars she left were still there. The anger, the betrayal, they were all still simmering beneath the surface. But now, instead of feeling like a victim, I felt something else. Something stronger. I felt like I had control. One afternoon, while I was out with Sophie, I saw Emily at a cafe. She was sitting at a table by the window, talking to someone, laughing in that way I remembered so well. The way she laughed when everything was right in the world, when I was the one sitting across from her, thinking that nothing could ever tear us apart. But now, everything had changed. And as I looked at her, I realized how far I had come. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't consumed by thoughts of revenge or bitterness. I didn't need to confront her, to tell her everything I had been holding in. I had already let go. Sophie noticed me looking and followed my gaze. "You okay?" she asked softly, her hand gently resting on mine. I looked at Sophie, the woman who had become my safe space, the one who hadn't tried to fix me, but instead allowed me to heal on my own terms. "Yeah, I'm good," I replied, smiling at her. "Just thinking about the past. I used to be stuck there, but I'm not anymore." Sophie squeezed my hand, her smile genuine and kind. "I'm proud of you." I turned back to Emily, watching her for a moment longer. She hadn't seen me. She was too busy in her world. And for once, I was okay with that. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was free. And that was enough. As Sophie and I walked away from the cafe, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was like a final chapter had been closed. Emily no longer had a hold on me. The woman I had once loved, the woman who had betrayed me, was now just a memory. And I had learned everything I needed to learn from that chapter. I wasn't going to let it define me. The future was ahead of me now. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to face it. Time passed, and each day felt a little lighter. I had finally come to a place where the past no longer had the power to control me. I could look back at the relationship I had with Emily without feeling the crushing weight of betrayal. It wasn't that I had forgotten what she did. It wasn't about forgiving and forgetting. It was about accepting that it was over and that it no longer had a place in my life. The man I was becoming wasn't defined by her or the mess she had left behind. I was my own person now, and I could finally see that. Sophie had become a significant part of my life, but not in the way I had expected. At first, I was wary. I wasn't looking for a rebound, wasn't looking for someone to replace what I had lost. But Sophie wasn't trying to be that person. She was simply Sophie, and that was enough. She understood that I had baggage, that I wasn't the same person I had been before, but she accepted me for who I was in the present, not the person I had been when I was with Emily. We started spending more time together, and I found myself enjoying life again, something I hadn't thought was possible after everything with Emily. Sophie didn't need to fill a void in my heart. She just made me feel like I was enough. She made me realize that I didn't have to be defined by the hurt I had experienced. I didn't have to carry the weight of my past around with me anymore. And, over time, I realized that I was ready to open up again, ready to trust again. Not in the way I had with Emily, not with the same blind devotion. But I could see the potential for something real, something honest, and something built on respect and understanding. With Sophie, it wasn't about fixing the broken pieces of me. It was about building something new, something whole. As much as I had grown, as much as I had healed, I knew there would always be remnants of the past, reminders that I couldn't erase. But those remnants no longer felt like chains. They were just part of my journey, part of who I had become. I wasn't the man I had been when Emily and I first got together. I wasn't the man who had believed every lie, who had trusted so easily. I had learned from my mistakes. I had learned from the pain. A few months later, Sophie and I went on a weekend trip to the mountains. It was the first real vacation I had taken since everything had fallen apart with Emily. The drive was long, the weather was unpredictable, but none of that mattered. What mattered was that Sophie and I were there together, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. There was no more tension, no more unresolved feelings. Just the sound of the wind against the car, the quiet chatter between us, and the promise of a future. On our second day there, as we hiked up a trail, Sophie stopped and looked at me. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, and said, "You're doing amazing, you know?" I felt a rush of emotion, something deep inside me that I hadn't expected. I didn't say anything at first, just smiled back. She didn't need to say those words. They meant more than she would ever know. She wasn't just speaking about our relationship. She was speaking about everything I had been through, everything I had survived. She saw me for who I was, not for what had happened to me. "Thanks," I said, my voice a little shaky. I didn't think I could ever get to this point. But here I am. Sophie reached for my hand and squeezed it. It was the simplest gesture, but it felt like the world. In that moment, I realized how far I had come. I wasn't holding on to the past anymore. I wasn't letting the pain and the betrayal define me. I was moving forward. I was living for myself, for the person I was becoming. And that was the most freeing feeling of all. As we continued our hike, with the towering trees surrounding us and the world feeling quiet and still, I made a vow to myself. I wasn't going to be afraid of the future anymore. I wasn't going to let my past dictate my happiness. I had faced the darkest moments of my life, and I had survived. I had learned to heal, to grow, to let go, and now I was ready to embrace whatever came next. Emily was a chapter in my story, but she was no longer the story. I was writing my own story now, one that was just beginning. And this time, I was in control. I sat on the couch, fist clenched, heart pounding like a war drum. The whiskey in my glass trembled with each heartbeat. It was 2:47 a.m. Her heels clicked on the driveway like gunshots. The moment I'd waited for, planned for, was finally here. She walked in, flawless as ever, lips still smudged with crimson, dress riding just a little too high for a girl's night. Madison, my wife. The woman I gave 10 damn years of my life to. She barely glanced at me, too busy texting on her phone. I cleared my throat. "So, darling, how was your time with your lover at the party?" She stopped cold, stared at me, then laughed. Laughed like I was some cheap sitcom character, like everything we'd built was a joke. "I'm not yours anymore," she said, tossing her purse to the side. "I'm his, a man who knows what a woman truly needs." Every muscle in my body froze. That wasn't just betrayal. That was mockery. That was someone setting fire to your soul and dancing in the flames. She walked past me like I was furniture, heels clicking on hardwood. I could still smell his cologne on her. Not mine. His. And she said it with pride, with no shame. But what she didn't know, what she never even thought to suspect, was that I had planted a tracker on his fancy BMW 2 weeks ago. She thought she was playing me. But I had already sent a biker gang, yes, a biker gang, to deal with him tonight. One phone call, one favor owed, and they were waiting for him in the parking lot while she was moaning his name. I felt sick. Not just because she betrayed me, but because I loved her. Or at least, I used to love the version of her I thought was real. The woman who baked cookies with my niece, who kissed my forehead after I pulled long shifts, who whispered promises in the dark. That woman didn't exist. Maybe she never did. She poured herself a glass of wine, barefoot now, humming like she hadn't just set off a bomb in my life. Why am I finally asked? She turned to me, ice cold, smug. Because he doesn't ask questions. He doesn't check my phone. He doesn't snore. And unlike you, he doesn't make me feel like a prison wife. I almost laughed. A prison wife? I worked my *** off to keep our house, pay the bills, surprise her with trips, support her little Etsy candle shop, even when it made zero money for 3 years. You disgust me, I said, low. Oh, boo-hoo. She rolled her eyes. Grow up, Travis. This isn't high school heartbreak. We had our run. It's over. It wasn't just what she said. It was how easily she said it. Like I was disposable. Like I was a used-up chapter in her fantasy novel. I stood up. You know what's really over? Him. She tilted her head. What do you mean? I took a sip of my drink. You'll find out soon enough. She squinted at me, suddenly aware something had shifted. That little twitch in her brow, fear. For the first time in months, she didn't look so damn confident. I stared her down, then walked to the door. I'm going out. To do what? To light the match. She didn't say a word. Maybe because deep down, she knew she'd lit this fire. She just didn't expect me to burn back. And as I stepped out into the cool night, I heard my phone buzz. He's handled. Handled. Not killed, handled. But that could mean a lot of things when you owe a favor to a guy like Diesel from the Silver Fangs MC. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just nodded. This wasn't revenge for pride. This was revenge for every single lie. Every time she said, I love you with another man's touch still fresh on her skin. Every fake smile at family dinners. Every damn time she swore I was her only one. But she chose war. And I never lose wars. I didn't go far that night. I sat in my truck just around the corner from our house, engine off, phone in hand. The night was silent, thick with the kind of tension that sits on your chest like a boulder. I wasn't proud of what I'd done, sending the Silver Fangs after her new boy toy, but I wasn't sorry either. His name was Chase. Of course, it was. The kind of name that came with a trust fund, a six-pack, and no real job. I had looked him up the first time I saw his contact pop up in her phone, client, Chase clinking glasses. A quick search revealed the truth. Not a client. Not even close. He was a self-proclaimed dating coach who specialized in seducing married women. Yeah, that's who she left me for. I watched the front windows of our house. Madison hadn't come out. Probably upstairs texting him, wondering why he wasn't answering. Wondering why her precious Chase hadn't sent that goodnight photo. What she didn't know was that Chase was currently getting his pretty boy face acquainted with the dirt in the back of a biker bar. I replayed her voice in my head. I'm not yours anymore. I'm his. I should have known. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. She started going to yoga 3 times a week. I'm not stupid. Yoga doesn't leave bite marks on your inner thigh. I found that out one night when she left her laundry in the basket and her leggings rode down just enough to show something that sure as hell didn't come from a yoga mat. Then there were the passwords. Changed. All of them. Suddenly, I couldn't access our shared photo drive or the Netflix account we'd used for years. Her explanation? I'm just trying to create healthy boundaries. Boundaries. Between husband and wife. I noticed she stopped calling me babe. It was subtle. At first, it was just Travis. Then it became silence altogether. At dinner, I was a ghost. At night, a stranger. She stopped wearing the ring. Said it didn't match her new aesthetic. What she meant was it didn't match the image she was curating for Chase's Instagram-fueled fantasy world. But I didn't confront her. Not right away. I started digging. And with each layer, I found rot. Receipts for a hotel in Santa Monica on a weekend. I was supposedly at a conference. Photos of her at a rooftop bar, arm around a man I'd never met, with her wearing the same dress she told me was too tight to wear in public. I once found a voice memo in her deleted files. Her whispering, I miss the way you make me feel like a goddess. The way she said you, it was like I'd never existed. I should have screamed. Instead, I just listened to that recording over and over, letting it gut me like a fish. By the time I confronted her, I wasn't asking for explanations. I already knew the answers. I just wanted to see her lie to my face one last time. And she did, without hesitation. Because Madison wasn't just a cheater, she was a performer. She could have won Oscars for the way she acted like she cared. But that night, with the wine in her hand and her fake little smile, she showed me her real face. The one that had no guilt, no shame, no heart. I finally turned the key in the ignition. I had a plan now. And I needed one last piece before the show really started. I called Diesel. Make sure he's still breathing, I said. But not smiling. Diesel chuckled. Oh, trust me. He won't be smiling for a while. As I drove off into the night, I looked in the rearview mirror. That house? That woman? Not mine anymore. And soon, she'd find out just how much that meant. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. I came back around 6 a.m., just as the sun was rising, and found her curled up on the couch in her robe, scrolling on her phone, legs crossed like a damn queen. My queen? No. Just a pretender on a throne built of lies. She looked up at me with zero remorse. Sleep well, Travis? I said nothing. I just walked past her, straight to the kitchen, poured myself some coffee, and turned on the kettle. My hands were calm, but inside, I was a storm waiting to detonate. She followed me in, leaned against the counter. So, what was all that drama last night? Some kind of act. She was testing me. She wanted to see if I'd fold, if I'd beg. She always thrived on control, and last night I took some of it back, something she wasn't used to. I just asked a question, I said, sipping my coffee. And you answered it with fireworks. She smirked, like a woman who thought she'd already won. Chase makes me feel alive. You make me feel like I'm aging in slow motion. That one hit deeper than I expected. Because for years, I've been trying to keep us young, taking her on weekend getaways, trying new things in bed, even shaving off my beard because she once joked it made me look like her uncle. I did everything to keep her excited, but it was never about me. It was always about her. About how many eyes turned when she walked into a room. About how many hearts she could string along. What happened to the woman who cried when I surprised her with a trip to Aspen? I asked, genuinely. What happened to the woman who used to wait for me at the door with a smile? She met someone better, she said, without blinking. I didn't even flinch. I expected it. At that point, I was only talking to remind myself of the ghost I married. Then came the second buzz of my plan. My phone lit up. Diesel. Package delivered. Pretty boys crying. No visible damage, but his pride's in pieces. Perfect. Now came the mind games. I turned to Madison, still calm. Chase doing okay today? She raised a brow. What do you mean? Didn't hear from him last night? Or this morning? I leaned forward. Weird. For a guy who makes you feel so alive, he's been real quiet. Her face twitched, just a flicker, but it was there. A crack in the mask. She quickly recovered. He's probably busy. Unlike you, he has a life. Right. A life that just got its ribs rearranged by a couple of drunk bikers who owed me a favor. You sure he's not ghosting you? I asked. That landed. Her lips parted slightly. You're pathetic, she hissed. You're trying to mess with my head now? Grow up. Oh, Madison, I smiled, sipping the last of my coffee. We're just getting started. I grabbed my keys and walked past her. She turned and shouted, Where the hell are you going now? To see a lawyer, I said. One who's about to love the file I've been building for the last 3 months. That shut her up. Yeah, I had copies. Photos. Voice recordings. Hotel receipts. Even screenshots of her chats with Chase, courtesy of a little spy app she never noticed running in the background of her new phone. I had enough evidence to make the divorce an open and shut case. And if she wanted to fight dirty, I'd go nuclear. She stood frozen, realizing that her game wasn't as clever as she thought. That maybe, just maybe, I hadn't been as blind as she hoped. As I opened the door, I paused and said, By the way, tell Chase I said thanks for the entertainment. And maybe invest in some new teeth. The old ones might be loose. Then I walked out. And for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. The lawyer's office was quiet. One of those polished downtown spaces with too many glass walls and not enough warmth. But I didn't come for comfort. I came for war. Mitchell Grady was the best divorce attorney in the city. Cutthroat. Expensive. And worth every penny. He glanced at the thick folder I dropped on his desk and gave me a slow whistle. Travis, most men bring suspicions. You brought a damn FBI-level dossier. I leaned back in my chair. I've had time to prepare. He opened the file, flipping through pictures, transcripts, receipts, location logs. Madison had no clue how deep I'd gone. While she was off playing the misunderstood goddess, I was collecting proof of every shady move she made. Mitchell stopped at one page, a screenshot of a bank statement. Madison had been siphoning off money from our joint account, slowly, cleverly, hiding it as business expenses, transferring small amounts to a separate account under the name Harper Designs, a company that didn't exist. Your wife, slick, Mitchell said. She was planning her exit. No, I said, my jaw tightening. She was planning a clean getaway. No baggage. No guilt. Just walk out the door with her candle shop and her boy toy. But now she's walking into a minefield. I nodded. And I'm not done. Mitchell gave me a half smile. We'll file for divorce today. You'll keep the house, the cars, and if we press on the financial theft, maybe even the business. But you sure you want this to go nuclear? I looked him dead in the eye. She took a flamethrower to our marriage. I'm just giving her a front row seat to the explosion. When I got home, she was on the phone. I heard her voice before I even opened the front door, tense, urgent, pacing. No, baby, I swear I didn't tell him anything. I don't know how he knew. He's just being weird. No, I didn't say your name. He's bluffing. Travis is bluffing. I stepped inside, letting the door slam shut behind me. She jumped, turned around, phone clutched to her chest. Tell him I said hi, I said casually. Her face drained of color. I was just... I know exactly what you were just doing, I interrupted. Didn't think I'd hear you planning damage control this early in the day. She hung up the call. I dropped a thick envelope onto the table. What's this? She asked. Papers, I said. Filed this morning. Consider it a prelude. She opened the envelope and skimmed the first page. Her face changed. Gone was the smug arrogance. No? Panic. You can't be serious. I was never more serious in my life. Her eyes narrowed. You're not getting away with this. I'll fight it. Good, I said. I've got more files waiting. She slammed the envelope on the table. I gave you the best years of my life. I laughed. You gave me lies. You gave Chase your best nights, your best moans, your best lingerie. I got the leftovers. She turned away, her breathing heavy, her shoulders shaking. But there were no tears. Just frustration. She didn't love me. She hated losing. Who the hell do you think you are? She spat. I'm the man who finally stopped being your doormat. And then I said something that silenced the whole room. I know about the second guy, Madison. She froze. I continued, slow and deliberate, the one who paid for your wellness retreat in Palm Springs. His name's Anthony. Married. 2 kids. Sound familiar? Her silence was answer enough. Yeah, Chase wasn't the only one. She had a rotation. A schedule. I had the flight logs. The hotel registrations. The burner email addresses. She was stunned into silence now, staring at me like I had grown horns. You wanted to play dirty, I said. I brought the mudslide. And as I turned to leave the room, I felt no guilt, no hesitation. Only the cold satisfaction of a man taking his life back, one truth at a time. She didn't follow me this time. Madison stayed frozen in the kitchen, clutching that envelope like it might rewrite the past if she squeezed it hard enough. But the truth was already out, and truth doesn't go back in the box once it's spilled. I stepped into my home office, well, what used to be our shared workspace before she claimed half the desk for her candles and spiritual crystals. The smell of lavender oil and deception still lingered in the air. I sat down, opened my laptop, and sent off one more email, all the evidence regarding Anthony. His wife deserved to know too. Yeah, I wasn't just burning bridges. I was torching the whole damn forest. A ping hit my phone. Diesel again. Diesel, your boy Chase went to the cops. Told them he got jumped outside the bar. Didn't say your name, but he's spooked. I replied, let him be scared. I want that fear to sit with him every night. I knew the line I was walking, but this wasn't about violence. It was about message. I didn't care if Chase limped for a week or 2. I cared that he understood. Messing with another man's wife doesn't end with champagne and Instagram reels. A knock came at the office door. Soft. Hesitant. I didn't answer. It creaked open anyway. Madison stepped in, not the confident vixen from the night before, but something else. Still not remorseful, just calculating. You're going to ruin everything, she said, arms crossed, tone cold. Good, I replied without looking up. She stepped closer. Travis, come on. We can talk about this. We don't need lawyers. You laughed in my face, Madison, I said, finally meeting her eyes. You made me a joke in my own home. Now you want peace. She said nothing for a beat, then leaned on the desk, lowering her voice. You're not thinking clearly. You're acting on emotion. You want to be the bigger man, right? This isn't you. I laughed. You don't know who I am. You never did. And you sure as hell don't get to tell me who to be now. She softened her voice. Her favorite manipulation trick. I didn't mean for things to go this far. I was just lost. We were drifting. Lost women don't find their way into hotel beds, Madison. They go to therapy. They fight for what they love. Her face twitched. She didn't like hearing that. I stood up, walked past her. You want to explain yourself? Go ahead. I'll give you 10 minutes. But after that, you're out of this house. Permanently. She didn't hesitate. You stopped making me feel seen. I was invisible in this marriage. I stared at her. I dress up, and you'd barely notice. I try to talk, and you'd always be too tired. You were slipping, Travis. And Chase, he made me feel alive again. There it was again. That word. Alive. Like I was a morgue worker and she was some Hollywood diva craving spotlight. I was working, Madison. Building a life. Paying for your car, your business, your everything. And I never asked you to, she snapped. You did it to feel in control? I took a step toward her. No, I did it because I loved you. Because I thought we were a team. Turns out, I was the mule and you were riding shotgun with someone else's hand on your thigh. She didn't flinch. You're still in love with me. That's why this hurts so much. No, I said, voice like ice. I'm in love with the woman I thought you were. The woman you pretended to be. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she had nothing. You've got 2 hours, I said. Take what's yours and leave. If you touch anything that's not, I'll have your face on every courtroom wall in the city. And then I left her there, alone in the space she polluted. Sometimes the only way to heal is to burn what poisoned you. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't even beg. Instead, Madison did what she always did best. She pretended she was in control. She strutted around the house for the next hour like she still owned the place, packing up her boutique wardrobe into expensive suitcases I paid for, acting like she was the one choosing to leave. It was almost comical. She even lit one of her overpriced candles on the kitchen counter like it was some kind of farewell ritual. I'll be sending someone for the rest of my things, she said flatly as she wheeled her last suitcase toward the door. Make sure it's not Chase, I replied without looking up. He might not like what's waiting in the driveway. She paused. You don't scare me, Travis. I turned to her slowly. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to let you know I've stopped being your fool. She smiled that same fake smile she used to use on her Instagram followers. One day, you'll realize I did you a favor. No, I said. You did me damage. I'm the one doing myself the favor by ending it. And just like that, she was gone. I stood there in the silence, looking at the spot where she'd lit the candle. It smelled like cinnamon and eucalyptus. I hated that smell now. I opened the kitchen window and let the scent disappear into the air like she had. I should have felt relief. But instead, what washed over me was something deeper: grief. Not just for her, but for the life I thought I had. The love I thought I built. It's not easy burying a dream that kept you warm at night. I walked into the bedroom and saw her jewelry box still sitting on the dresser. For a moment, I stared at it, then opened it. Inside, tucked beneath the fake gold and flashy earrings, was the necklace I gave her for our 5th anniversary. She said it made her feel like a queen. Guess it didn't shine as bright as the attention from a guy with a 6-pack and a rental Porsche. I grabbed the necklace, walked out to the backyard, and dropped it into the fire pit. I didn't light it yet. I just needed the act. The symbol. I needed to know I could destroy something she once made me believe was sacred. That night, I slept in the middle of the bed. The next morning, I woke up early. I didn't check her Instagram like I used to. I didn't scroll through her photos or wonder what she was doing. I didn't play detective anymore. The case was closed. The guilty verdict was in. I made coffee. Black. No cinnamon creamer. No soy milk. Just strong and bitter, like I felt. Then came a text. Not from Diesel. Not from Mitchell. From Anthony's wife. The second guy's wife. Thank you for the truth. I had no idea. I'm filing tomorrow. You're not alone in this. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I smiled, just a little. Because somewhere out there, another betrayed heart was waking up, choosing clarity over confusion. It wasn't just about Madison anymore. It was about taking back what people like her tried to steal: peace. I spent the day cleaning the house. Not just the dust and dishes, but her. Her energy. Her presence. I scrubbed the mirrors. Washed the sheets. Tossed every scented candle into a garbage bag and dumped it at the curb. I played loud music, songs she hated. I danced like a lunatic in the hallway. And when I finally lit that fire in the backyard, I tossed the necklace into the flames. Watched it melt, spark, then vanish. Just like the love we had. And it felt good. Really good. It was strange how fast the house became mine again. Without her perfume clouding the halls, without her drama echoing through the walls, the space finally breathed. It felt like I'd been living in someone else's staged fantasy, a set for a show I didn't even know I was cast in. Now the lights were off, the script burned, and I was free to rewrite the next act. I changed the locks that week. New keys. New code on the garage. I even changed the Wi-Fi name to No Cheaters Allowed, just to make myself laugh. Petty? Maybe. But after what she did, I earned a little pettiness. Friends started calling. Word spread fast in our circle. Madison always loved attention, and now she was getting it for all the wrong reasons. People I hadn't heard from in months were suddenly so sorry and totally shocked. But you could hear it in their voices, most weren't shocked. Just guilty they hadn't warned me. One night, my best friend Tyler came over with a six-pack. I knew something was off, bro, he said, handing me a beer. But I didn't want to say anything. You were all in, and I didn't want to be that guy. You should have been, I said honestly. Next time, if there is a next time, be that guy. We sat in silence for a bit. Then he said what I hadn't let myself say out loud. She didn't deserve you, man. I nodded, not to agree, but to accept. Because he was right. Not in an arrogant way, but in the quiet way you admit that someone trampled over something you built with your bare hands. The next few days were weird. I kept expecting to hear from her. A text. A call. A sobbing voicemail. Something. But nothing came. No apology. No regret. No explanation. It was like she disappeared the moment she couldn't control the story anymore. And honestly, that silence was louder than anything she could have said. It told me everything. She never loved me. Not in the way I loved her. Because love doesn't leave without trying. And she didn't even flinch. But I kept moving. I cleaned out the shared closet. Tossed the dresses she forgot. Donated the heels that once clicked around my kitchen like a ticking time bomb. I even emptied the junk drawer she used to clutter with crystals and dried flowers and energy tokens from her ridiculous retreats. I found a journal too, hidden under her side of the bed. Part of me didn't want to read it. The other part needed to. So I did. It was filled with affirmations. Pages and pages of, I deserve more, and I am a queen, and Travis is suffocating my soul. She'd been writing it for months. Maybe years. And not once did she write about fixing us. Only freeing herself. She'd already left me 1,000 times in that journal. So I stopped reading. I lit the fire again. And page by page, I fed her words to the flames. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just watched the smoke rise. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Maybe years. Not because I was over it, but because I was finally under nothing. No lies. No pretense. No wait. Just me. And the beginning of something new. 2 weeks passed. Not a single word from her. Not even a how are you? Or an I regret everything. Not that I expected one. Madison didn't do apologies. She rewrote history in her head, turned herself into the victim, and marched forward like a phoenix rising from ashes she lit herself. But I didn't need her words. I had the truth. And the truth was enough. Divorce moved quickly. Mitchell Grady, my lawyer, didn't waste time. With the mountain of evidence I gave him, the court didn't blink. I kept the house, the vehicles, the savings account, and even partial ownership of her candle business, which she had to sell back to me for pennies on the dollar. She wanted out? She got it. I heard she moved in with Chase. Of course she did. I also heard Chase broke up with her a week later when his face stopped swelling and his ego came crashing down. Turns out, once the thrill of forbidden fun wore off, so did her appeal. He ghosted her. Just like she ghosted reality. And just like that, karma pulled up a front row seat. But by then, I wasn't watching anymore. I had my own life to rebuild. And strangely, for the first time in years, I felt excited. Not bitter. Not angry. Just free. I started doing things I'd put off for years. I reconnected with old friends. Took weekend road trips on my own. Picked up photography again, the real kind. Not the curated nonsense she made me post on her fake, lifestyle couple page. I joined a boxing gym, hit the bag like it owed me rent, and finally slept without waking up in a cold sweat. Then came the last unexpected twist. Her mom showed up at my doorstep. Yeah, Linda, the woman who once called me the best thing that ever happened to Madison and then went completely silent when the betrayal broke. She looked exhausted, makeup barely covering the stress on her face. I just came to say, "I'm sorry," she said quietly. I leaned on the doorframe. "You knew, didn't you?" She nodded. Not at first, but toward the end, yes. I told her to stop. She didn't listen. I should have slammed the door. Should have told her she was just another enabler. But something in her face, the guilt, the shame, kept me still. "She thinks you'll take her back," Linda added. "That one day you'll soften." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so her. Madison, the queen of manipulation, still thought the world bent for her. "Tell her to keep dreaming," I said. Linda nodded and turned to leave. But before she walked down the steps, she turned back. "She didn't deserve you, Travis. And she knows it, even if she'll never admit it." And then she was gone. I closed the door and stood there in the silence of my own house, the house I saved, the house I fought for, the house no longer haunted by her lies. That night, I sat outside with a beer, looked up at the stars, and thought about everything that happened. The betrayal, the confrontation, the pain, the rage, the release. And I realized something. I didn't need closure from her. I didn't need an apology or some Hollywood-style breakdown. I had myself, whole again, stronger than I'd ever been. So here's what I'd say to anyone going through the same hell I did. Believe the red flags. Don't ignore the gut feelings. And never, ever settle for being someone's backup plan. You deserve better. You deserve real. You deserve peace. And sometimes, peace doesn't come from forgiving. It comes from finally walking away and never looking back.